Hello my friends, I hope you are doing well. Today I wanted to talk a bit about why I don't buy many books. Anyone who's watched any of my wrap-ups will know that a lot of the time when I'm talking about a book, I don't have a physical copy of the book with me. I usually use a little picture up in the corner to show what the cover looks like. And this is because I get most of the books I read from the library and I have to take them back before I have time to film a wrap-up video. So I wanted to talk a bit about why I use the library more than buying books, because I do sometimes feel a bit guilty about the fact that I don't buy a lot. I work full-time, so I definitely have a little bit of extra money that I could spend on buying a few new books every month if I wanted to. And I feel like I should be supporting authors and publishers and local bookshops by spending my money on books. And especially as I love writing fiction and would love one day to be a published author myself. So I'd say the number one reason that I don't buy a lot of books is that, unfortunately, where I live, a lot of the bookshops don't actually stock the books that I really want to buy. When I am searching for a particular book and I've decided that I really want to buy it and I go out into the shops to look for it, I usually can't find it, and I don't really blame the bookshops for this. We have a fair few independent bookshops alongside the chain store Dimmicks in Perth, but they are all very small bookshops. And obviously there's only so much they can stock, and they're going to stock more of the popular books and the new releases because that, I am sure, is what makes them the most money. So when there is a particular book I want to buy, I usually do have to resort to Book Depository just because it is often the only place that I actually can get hold of the book. So a few exceptions to this when I have bought some new books. I recently bought Eucalyptus by Murray Bale. I'm going to be reading some of the Miles Franklin either winners or shortlisted books very soon because the Miles Franklin long list for this year is shortly to be announced. My mum used to own this book and I remember seeing it in her bookshelves and she always said it was really good and that I should read it, and then we were looking for it last time I was at my parents' house and we could not find it at all, and it's not in my library. So luckily I found a copy of it in Dimmicks, and so I thought, seeing as it's considered an Australian classic, it's probably worthwhile buying it. I also bought Jen Campbell's short story collection. Like most people on BookTube, I have been watching Jen's videos for ages and was really interested in reading her short story collection. I actually saw this in the window of a bookshop called Kaleido Bookshop, which actually became a little bit internet famous because it has a chalkboard out of the front of the bookshop that often has kind of funny or witty things written on it. And there was one particular photo of that chalkboard that was going around the internet. I can't even remember what it said. If I find it, I will link it down below. Seeing as this was just sitting in the bookshop, I thought I may as well buy it. I also recently bought these two books off eBay. I don't know if anyone else read the Roman Mystery series when they were kids. I was obsessed with them and managed to collect the whole series apart from the two final books, which I actually haven't ever read. So I never finished off the series, which is ridiculous because I love those books so much. You can't actually get these original covers new anymore, so I had to resort to eBay to make sure that these two books match the rest of the books that I have, and these are also hardback as well, which is nice. In the post it did get a little bit damaged and I did give them a neutral review, which made me so anxious, even though they genuinely did do the wrong thing by not putting it in thicker packaging. So I'm going to read through the series again so I can finally finish it off, but because I'm reading them in between the other books that I'm reading, it probably will take me quite a while to actually get to these. So when I buy new books, they usually are very specific ones that I really want to get. When I do impulse buy books, it's usually from op shops. I love op shopping or charity store shopping. I think op shop is like a very specific Australian name for a charity store or a thrift store. I love buying secondhand clothes. This jumper, for example, was from a Salvation Army op shop. I also love looking over a selection of books that op shops have, and I find that they have an enormous selection of really good quality unread books, all for about $2 or $3. They're especially good if you really want to buy a super popular book. For example, I've seen multiple copies of Bridget Jones' Diary or The Kite Runner or the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. Books like that that are super popular that people would have been given as gifts or would have just bought because of the hype and then not really wanted to keep, and so they just gave it to the op shop. I do have to stop myself impulse buying like over 10 books at a time because I really don't have enough space in my house for all those books. And I'm more likely to impulse buy in an op shop because if I don't like the book, I can easily take it back and it's just cost me a small donation to a charity. So some recent op shop finds have been Oscar and Lucinda by Peter Carey. this is also going to be one of my Miles Franklin reads. I was actually just intending on getting it from the library, but then I saw this copy in the op shop and I thought, why not purchase it? It has a really cool old school cover, which I really like, and the spine is barely wrinkled. I don't know if anyone's even ever read this book. Another Australian book, The Sharknet by Robert Drew. I actually read this from the library a couple of years ago and really enjoyed it because it's about my hometown of Perth, and so it was on my list of books that I wanted to own myself, and so when I saw it in an op shop I thought that was the perfect opportunity. And I love that it has a really old price tag on the back of the book. Apparently it was originally $22 from Newslink. I have no idea what Newslink is. Presume it's a newsagent or something like that. Usually my purchases from op shops are classics because I feel like a classic is something that I probably will enjoy on some level and is something that I will want to keep. So I found this copy of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, completely brand new, and I love the vintage cover for this book. And I know I have an illustrated copy of Alice in Wonderland back at my parents' house, but I realized I didn't have a copy of Through the Looking Glass, so now I have both in a nice little neat book. Another vintage I found, and if I see one of the vintage red spines on the shelf, I'm instantly drawn to it. I can't help myself but buy vintage books. I found this copy of Anna Karenina. I've always wanted to read at least one Tolstoy, and I thought I would pick Anna Karenina just because I quite enjoyed the film. I know the film with Keira Knightley gets a bad rap, but I actually really enjoyed it. I thought the style of it was really cool, and this is such a massive book that if I tried to read it from the library I feel like I wouldn't be able to finish it in time, so this way I can just slowly make my way through this book. Lastly, I also found this book. It is Three Men on the Bummel by Jerome K. Jerome. Bummel sounds bad. Maybe it's pronounced Boomel, I don't know. This is a sequel to one of my favourite books, Three Men in a Boat. This book is so cute and British. It's about three men who go up the River Thames in England in like the late Victorian, early Edwardian era, and just talks about the silly things that they do on the river, and it's very British and very charming. And so this sequel follows those same men, this time on a bicycle trip around Germany. I'm not even sure whether you can get this book new, and I really love the cover as well. I love it when old classics that use paintings for their covers find like the perfect painting to go with the book. So as I mentioned before, I get most of my books from the library. I'm very fortunate to live in a council area that has 5 different libraries, and my local one is just 5 minutes down the road from me. It opens late on Monday and Tuesday, so often when I've requested a book I will just take the bus a little bit further than I normally would, pick up my book from the library and then walk home. And I can request books from any of those 5 libraries. It's very rare for me to search for a book in my library's catalogue and not find it there. My library is incredible. I feel like there are more books in the library catalogue than could possibly fit in all the shelves, even with 5 libraries. It is especially good for new releases, and I love being able to try out new releases and try out new authors. And if I don't like them, I can simply just take them back to the library and there's no stress about them sitting on my shelves and staring at me and making me annoyed. I read somewhere that apparently authors get a small amount of money every time someone takes one of their books out of the library. And I'm not sure how that works, but it does make me feel like I am supporting the authors in some small way. And also, if the library doesn't have a book, there are ways to request that they buy that book, which in turn supports the author and allows that book to be accessed by so many more people than it would otherwise. I could make a whole separate video about why libraries are so important, and I feel like supporting libraries and making sure that councils and governments still keep them running is as important as supporting bookshops. I love that on my library's website I can stick books into a list under my account name, and they act as a kind of TBR list for me, so whenever I'm looking for my next book to read I can just scroll through that list and instantly request that book. And if the book isn't already out of the library, it will arrive at my library pretty much the next working day. So I currently just have one library book with me at the moment. It is The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart by Holly Ringland. This is a perfect example of my library having the most up-to-date new releases. This is probably the big new release in Australia at the moment. I've seen it advertised a lot on Instagram. Dimmix is pushing it really hard, and you can definitely see why. The cover is really, really pretty, and the title is, I feel like, a trend of titles at the moment, similar to Eleanor Oliphant, of having the protagonist's full name in the title. I'm also very glad I got got this from the library because I really enjoyed the beginning of this book, but I'm not enjoying the middle section so much, and I am just up to the third part of the book, so I'm going to keep on reading and see how I feel about the next bit, but I will give a proper review of this in my May wrap up. So as I said before, I have a list of books that I have read from the library that I really enjoyed and would love to own. So eventually I will purchase those books, whether I find them in a bookstore or get them online from Book Depository. Just at the moment, I don't have a lot of space to store books. This bookshelf that I have behind me is pretty much my only bookshelf. It's tiny, it only has 3 shelves, and as you can see, it's already packed to the brim, and there are books sitting on top of it as well that are ones to be read. We do have some shelves in our TV cabinet that I've put the books that I sort of share with my sister. Our Harry Potter books are there, the Del Toro Quest books that I bought for my sister are there as well, our Diana Wynne Jones books, and then some classics as well. But definitely if I buy any more books, I'm going to have to start piling them on the floor. Though I did just buy 5 books off Book Depository, so I'm being a bit hypocritical there. But I will do a mini haul when those come, and I'll explain the reasons why I wanted to buy those books. Also, I've moved house several times in my life, including a couple of times since moving away from my parents' house. And even though I don't think I own that many books, for some reason, when you take them off the shelves and put them inside boxes, they seem to double in size. And I know I'll probably be moving again in the next few years, whether that's somewhere else in Perth or hopefully moving to Melbourne, as most young people from Perth seem to do. And it will be hugely expensive to cart a whole bunch of books across Australia. And I don't think there's many that I could cull from the collection that I have now. So I want to be careful not to increase my collection too much. So I hope that was interesting or informative in some way. Please talk about your own book buying habits in the comments. I really want to know if you're more of a library user, what draws you to using the library more, or if you are more of a book buyer, what makes you really want to purchase all the books that you read. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you soon. Bye.